As a quick introduction, my name is Calvin. I am the President and Chief Strategy Officer for a company called Unified Social. For those of you that are interested in entrepreneurship, we are a startup. We started about 2 years ago, and what we are is essentially an enterprise marketing technology platform for brands and agencies to manage all of their social data and analytics and then activate all of their social engagement programs, whether through paid advertising or content publishing. So we actually work with Eisenberg team and the Injustice team here to do some of the social tracking and measurement associated with some of their campaigns. And so thank you all for inviting me to host this panel. We have here a great set of panelists, and I'll let each of them introduce themselves along the way, but from marketing to content and everything else, as Steve mentioned. So why don't we just start off at the end there with Craig, and we'll just go right on down to do introductions.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Craig Mitchell. I am a global brand manager for Warner Brothers Interactive. Currently overseeing the launch of the Injustice Gods Among Us franchise. Game's coming out on April 16th, so I encourage everyone to pre-order the game now. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lori Neubauer. I work for Xbox and I manage partnership marketing for Xbox, so that's kind of the platform, games, Xbox Live Service, all of the above.
Hello, my name is Karl Stewart, and I'm Global Brand Director for the Tomb Raider franchise at Crystal Dynamics, and also head up PR and marketing for Square Enix North America for all Tomb Raider.
Tuhin Roy, I'm the co-founder of Fanzy. We are a Facebook application that enables brands to reward social fans for sharing. So we're about creating social word of mouth, and we work with all kinds of brands, consumer brands, music, television, sports, and also games.
You get to hold that one. I got this little lollipop. So I guess we'll start at the very top. I mean, I think all of us are very interested in gaming, of course, that's why we're here. There's hundreds of titles get released a year, millions and tens of millions of dollars that get invested into production, and even more on marketing of that. So I guess when we have a esteemed panel here, as you guys launch a title, I guess where we can start is, where do you start? What are your goals, objectives? Do you look for general awareness? Do you look for engagement? Do you look for pre-sales and things like that? How do you just think, essentially, what is your measurement, or where do you go to consider yourself winning and successful at the end of the day?
I mean, we look at a lot of different metrics to measure success. Something I've discovered more and more, pre-orders is obviously a big thing that we have to look at. You know, the retailers many of the time are basing much of what their day one orders are going to be on pre-orders. So being able to drive that number and being able to bring your retailers into whatever promotional programs that you're developing, more and more I think is becoming important. I think that's it for now.
Mine was slightly different. About 4 years ago, we decided to reboot the franchise. So basically it was not just the metric of how many we need to sell, but engaging with fans all around the world, bringing back those lapsed fans, introducing new fans to the game, to the franchise. And you know, the metrics that we used across the way, a lot of it was, if you can imagine, we amassed 14 or 15 years of, you know, people playing everything from Tomb Raider 1 to Tomb Raider Legend to Guardian of Light. And a lot of those kind of had this preconceived idea. And when we did a lot of research studies in the early days with Nielsen, you know, we asked all the questions of like, who's played Tomb Raider? And people would go, I have. And then like, what's the last Tomb Raider you played? And people go, Tomb Raider 2 or Tomb Raider 3. And you realize that there's a lot of fans out there, and there's a lot of metrics tell us there's a lot of fans. At one point, we did a study with Nielsen, and they said that 95%, in the top 5 territories around the world, we interviewed like 15,000 people, and we had a 95% awareness of Lara Croft and Tomb Raider. So for us, metrics at the early stage were key to us sort of reimagining the franchise and helping sort of set the foundation. But as we started to move forward, then we started to look at how socially we have to capture people. We started with 0 people on Facebook for Tomb Raider about 2 years ago, and managed to get it up to 1 million. And in the same with Tumblr, but then once you reach the point where you're 6 months out, then pre-order numbers kick in. So we have a varied array of numbers that we will look at. And really it depends on what your goal is. You know, we've gone from the pre-orders, which I don't know about you guys, but I'm sick of everybody using pre-orders as a measure of success. It's become an absolute joke of late. And I think even GameStop will tell you that, you know, between 50 to 60% of pre-orders actually get picked up on day one, and even by the end of the week. So I think in general, we're always trying to find ways to be able to get new metrics, present new metrics to retail. You know, what are the likes of tracks now versus Nielsen's aided and unaided awareness charts telling us? And I think, you know, it kind of moves with the times for us. But pre-orders, I love them, but I hate them at the same time as well.
I think it's numerous things. I mean, for us, it's, if you think about that whole funnel, right? It's sales is where it's most important, but we definitely target much higher. And I think it's different tactics. We just try to get clear on which, you know, each thing that you're doing, which one you're after. You can't nail them all, so let's just be really specific as to, you know, which tactic is our primary objective here. And I think that also varies based on the consumer, right, and the different types of audiences. So I think that's where we spend the most part of our time, at least to start for your question, is like, who is that consumer? And it's numerous consumers. You know, when you think about a game title, is it that, you know, blockbuster kind of games enthusiast? Is it that Halo fan that maybe, you know, has fallen off from an interest level? Is it, you know, that hardcore fan? And it's really just thinking through all those different audiences and what's going to appeal and where you want to hit. Is it, you know, that really deep engagement where they spend a lot of time? Is it more of that awareness and kind of bringing them into the fold? So it's definitely numerous.
So I've heard each of you hit on engagement, whether it's re-engagement, growing engagement, bringing it in depth. And Steve mentioned at the beginning, I mean, there's a certain number of different things that people, or methodologies that people are introducing. Social is clearly one of them. Social sharing and virality, original content to promote your content, as well as incentivized sharing and things like that. What are some of the best practices that you guys have seen in terms of number of different tactics that you found that worked in your various ways to promote titles that you guys have rolled out?
So one of the things with TR is, you know, it's all about a girl who goes treasure hunting. So for us, very early stages, we started to look at how we could engage a new audience and engage people on a couple different levels. You know, we have, as I mentioned, a lot of fans and a lot of fan art getting submitted. So we decided to sort of house all these different digital promotions depending on where the audience was. And, you know, one of them, for instance, we ran with DeviantArt, where we basically said, you know, you go to DeviantArt, loads of people submit their art for Tomb Raider, and we decided to take over DeviantArt for an entire month. We had over 2,000 submissions, 22 million impressions, and I think we broke every single record they've ever had because we kind of understood that audience and we delivered a competition and an opportunity for them to be able to give us content. And they were fans that have been around for a long time, whereas we wanted to bring in new people. We then start looking at, well, if Lara Croft's a treasure hunter, how do we build maybe a scavenger hunt? And we created, I don't know whether anybody saw the scavenger hunt promotion we did on two folds. One was the pre-awareness and one was launch. The pre-awareness one where we basically created a website, you could save it as an app on your phone. You basically get every single week clues where you could go and take photographs, submit them through to our community. We'd moderate the content, push it to our Facebook or our Tumblr page, and you would build up points depending on how much you would gather and sort of scavenge. And sometimes it was clues, sometimes it was, you know, go and find a bridge, stone, whatever it may be, do your own little mini treasure hunting. And we had some like, I think it was like 400,000 submissions on the lead up to launch. And the more points you got, the more DLC we gave. Versus then we went for the mass market with Twitter. We took a takeover. I don't know if anybody's seen our posters with Reborn, the hashtag. We made it pretty prominent. We basically took over Twitter for the day. We told everybody to, you know, tweet their pictures of Tomb Raider with hashtag Reborn. We trended for about sort of 9 or 10 hours in total. And every time you did, you were submitted to a competition and you won Xbox prizes and giveaways and so on. So we built all these digital programs depending on the sort of the consumer or the gamer we were going after and where they lived. And each one was successful, but it wasn't a one-shoe-fits-all type scenario. It had to be built specifically for your audience you're going after.
Yeah, just to add to that, I completely agree. You know, there's two things that we looked at when we launched our big social initiative for Injustice. Is one, you got to know who your target audience is. For us, you know, we had two good things going for us. One, our game was from the creators of Mortal Kombat, so we knew that we had the hardcore fighting fans looking at us and wanting content that they could get into. But on the other side, we had the DC license, Superman, Batman, and people from that audience wanted to engage with us as well. And they're completely different audiences that want different things. So when we launched our social initiative, you know, we created, you know, this is essentially a bracket where people could go in and vote on who they think should win in these big matchups. You know, Green Lantern versus the Flash, and Aquaman versus Superman. And every week we would create this new content, starting with some more of the stuff that's focused towards the DC audience. So giving history on the pieces and allowing celebrities within the DC world, guys like Kevin Smith, guys like Stan Lee, to debate and who they think would win. And we noticed that the DC audience really resonated towards that. And so we hosted a lot of that on the DC website and through the Batman Facebook page, stuff like that. And then we would follow it up at the end of the week with these fight videos, which were all focused towards the hardcore fighting fans, getting into the mechanics of what the game is. And we noticed those were really popular on some of on the fighting pages, the Test Your Mights and the Shurikens of the world. So kind of having that understanding of the audience you're going after really dictates the content that you create. And then the second thing I wanted to point out is creating the rabbit hole effect. A lot of people don't have time to engage that long with your brand, so you want to create sort of that introductory level of maybe watching an entertaining video or something funny, or maybe it's an internet meme or some image that you put out, and that really just kind of gets them into the funnel. And then as they have more time and they just start to discover what this thing is all about, you continue to create more and more content for them to engage with, to share with their friends and bring more people into the funnel.
From my perspective, so my role right now is partnership marketing, and that's aligning with other consumer brands to help get the message out. So if I'll take a best practice, Halo 4, we had a partnership with Mountain Dew and Doritos. Now, first, there's so much going on with the Halo 4 campaign all up, and I'm kind of one piece of that from a partnership perspective. And our primary objective there is really broad awareness and to get the message out, in numerous channels. Excuse me. So, from a success factor, we look at numerous things, and certainly it's awareness and engagement, and what are those massive impressions we drive from 650 million packages or whatever I think are all up impressions, 6 billion something. But where you really get successful too is from an engagement perspective, when it really resonates. And we had numerous things from this kind of double XP where you'd give away matches and you can kind of level up there and put all these in, but you have to realize that that doesn't work for every consumer. So what other elements can we put maybe for that mom buying it, for her son in the grocery store and adding a sweepstakes component to it? Or we had a mobile piece from a 7-Eleven perspective where we created a mobile game to kind of engage the fans there, knowing that there's an audience overlap. So I think it's just coming up with different pieces, trying to make sure it kind of ladders up to the same message and resonates with numerous audiences, but yet has something for each of the different consumers that is relevant to them and in their space and reaches them when it's appropriate time with a compelling message.
So all of you seem to mention proprietary content to drive awareness. As you begin with your marketing plan, how much do you earmark for proprietary content development versus user-generated content versus paid promotions and advertising to get people to find out about it? How do you guys think about that kind of development of cycle?
I suppose these ways, we have two separate budgets, as in most corporations now. We have our brand budget. So in the studio 4 years ago, when I started taking over the franchise, we had an amount that we allocated towards, going to E3, engaging the fans, building new websites, building your Facebook page out. And then when you're kind of that year before launch, you start kicking into your marketing spend. You start looking at how to be able to drive awareness and promotion and so on. So for us, we allocated, I want to say somewhere around $6 to $7 million in the brand side, and sort of setting the foundation. And some of the things which we needed to do, and again, I'd probably talk about some of the, wouldn't say competitors, but the complementary companies that are out there. Some of the challenges that we had when we were taking over the franchise is that the websites are becoming an absolute pain in the backside. Everybody knows how hard it is when you have a central web department who builds the sites for the entire company, and then you want to get stuff updated, and then you're waiting and all the rest, yada, yada. So we brought in a company called This Moment that allowed us to be able to build our site and give all the territories the opportunity to be able to change in real time their page. There were certain sections which we locked off, media sections where we could globally upload videos, and then they had the opportunity then to be able to change what they needed. Now that was a massive investment. That was hundreds of thousands of dollars on the front end, which paid dividend, because when you got to the promotional side of the other side, they were then building small assets and only having to update them on the website themselves. So therefore, we were building the tools and building the foundation for them to be successful at the end, compared to some of the products I've worked on before, where it really is just marketing spend. You know, you're working. I came from the publishing side to the development side, and now I sit on the balance of working both angles to know that in the early days you have to make an investment, and in the latter half of the promotion you get to see that investment come through because you're then spending your marketing dollars on literally attacking or going after and engaging with the consumer. More so than having to build programs. We all know, you know, on the publishing side, when you get a game thrown over the fence at you and you're told, you got 8 months, go for it. Then every single dollar you've got is basically, shit, how do I do online? How do I build fan base by buying users? You know, one of the biggest things, I don't know how many people I've spent, you know, a ton of time in Facebook lately, but everybody's got this metric of, you know, how many likes can I get to? You know, and I see games kind of going, I got to 2 million likes or 4 million likes, and you think that's great. And like, how much does that cost you? Only cost me $800,000. I'm like, oh, great. How much money have you got now to be able to engage with those fans? Well, nothing. I've spent it getting likes. It's like, well, what's the point in getting likes if you can't make it work for you? So we build these huge programs in the front end and make the investment to say, let's build and get people in. And then on the latter half, then we use our funding, which, you know, an average budget in the US, you know, is over $10, $15 million on marketing. And then we try and assign portions of that to be able to then bring the content to those people who've liked us and engage with them and do retail promotions, Amazon, Best Buy, whoever it may be, to make it easy. So the budgets come from both publishing and dev. It's quite hefty.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to add because, you know, what you just said about these enormous spends focused on building like bases on Facebook or followers on Twitter, this is really where we play. I mean, you know, our view is that mechanism, which most people think about as, so, you know, that is what social marketing is. You attract these always-on connections with consumers in these social networks, is really broken. So there's enormous spend going on to attract likes on a Facebook page or followers on Twitter. And then over the last, you know, 18 months, what we've seen is both these networks starting to crank down and crank down and crank down on your ability now to talk to the people who you just paid, often the social network themselves, to get a connection to. So in the case of Facebook, for instance, what they'll tell you is that on any given day, if you post to a brand's page, 10 to 12% of the people who have liked that page will see it. And then you talk about kind of what's the best practice in terms of you know, content versus paid acquisition to then get engagement. Of those 10% of the people who've liked your page who even see your post, we're getting way sub 1% sharing forward. So that's one of the places that, you know, that we play. And I guess the reason we're on the panel is because a lot of what we do is kind of light gamification around engaging fans and seeing who's the biggest fan of, in this case, a game, in terms of their ability to then go out and spread the word, get engagement from their friends, get retweets, get comments, likes, accepted invites, and then, you know, that effectively that drives whatever the result is, whether it's you know, traffic to a pre-order page or views on a trailer video. But what we're really finding is that without some additional tools involved, you simply do not get the promise out of social marketing that, you know, that everyone's in it for.
So have you, as you talk to all those different channels, have you found, or any of the panelists found, a difference in the effectiveness of something like a Facebook like versus a Facebook share versus a retweet? How do you guys think about social as you integrate that throughout the experiences that you're creating?
Well, I mean, one of the things that we're seeing too is, and this is part of the challenge, and it's always been a challenge in digital marketing, but I think even more so in social marketing, because social is so dominated by a few large platforms, is that the answer to that question is always changing. So, you know, as I said, Facebook's been cranking down on your ability to reach fans via posts to the page. Well, there's a whole new set of changes coming in the next, actually they're already rolling out, but I think they'll be fully rolled out in the next 6 weeks. For instance, on Facebook, where they're going to start segmenting the feed to be, the default feed will be only stuff from your friends, and you'll actually have to select now if you want to see content from pages you've liked, for instance. And that's going to make it even more difficult for a brand, even paying to get their message in front. So, you know, I just think that the answer, you know, at a high level around that, and it extends way beyond social, is you have to get the fans engaged in spreading the word, and you need to do that in a way that's as organic as possible, meaning feels most authentic in terms of the reason they're sharing.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think for us, building strong content first is the most important thing. People will find a way to share it. I think going into this campaign, essentially launching a new franchise, yes, we have the strength of the developers of Mortal Kombat. We have the DC license, but essentially you're launching a new gaming franchise from scratch. We had no Facebook fans. And my initial perception going into this, and I'm coming off of looking at Mortal Kombat that had, I think 3 to 4 million Facebook fans. I was like, I have to achieve that for my campaign. And what I quickly learned is that there's so many other metrics to determine success beyond just a Facebook like. And we're in our first month of launching our social campaign, our Injustice Battle Arena. We had about 60,000 likes. And I'm like, this is a massive failure. What am I doing here? And then we look over at our YouTube channel, and within 1 month, we went from having about 500,000 video views. Now we're up around 15 million. And that's when it really was like an aha moment for me, is like, people are gonna find a way to share that content. It might not be through your Facebook channel. You start looking at how we distributed this content through our, like I said, the Batman Facebook page has 8 million people on it, Superman 5 million, and finding these different channels where your audience already exists and being able to push that content out, to me was just a huge learning lesson, and makes me rethink, about social metrics and what are we really trying to accomplish here.
I think Facebook fascinated me when we started looking at Tomb Raider. We were starting from a zero, just absolutely none. We managed to get the Tomb Raider page back off somebody who'd camped out on it for quite a few years, and starting from zero, I said, well, what is our strategy? What are we trying to achieve with Facebook? And it was interesting because I sat with Facebook, kind of every 3 weeks. We did probably 2 or 3 hack sessions with them, which anybody who's one of the hack sessions, they're really interesting days where you get to sit with them and kind of blast out what your goals are for your Facebook page and building content. And I looked at Facebook as a slight different beast, and I still think to this day, Facebook is still untapped. Like, we look at Facebook and we think that it's all about the billion people. And I sit with them, I look at the tools that they're building and how we can engage with them. And I still think Facebook is, for us, in a way, part of our future. And I'm not going to sit here and endorse Facebook because I kind of partially closed down my account a couple of years ago, and I'm only on the Tomb Raider account. But Facebook offers. Has anybody done Facebook offers for their game? Nobody? So I invested $20,000 in a Facebook offer for a 24-hour period. I got a particular code from Amazon. And I basically said, right, we're going to give it to Facebook, and I'm going to see how it goes. We put, as I said, $20,000 behind it. 18,000 people used that code. And Amazon came back to us the next day and said, what the hell did you just do? And I said, well, it's fine. We just use Facebook offers, right? Basically, it just gets pushed out to all the people who are friends of or like Tomb Raider. And literally in one day, we had more pre-orders on Amazon than we had in the 6 months leading up to Amazon. Now, for anybody who's watched the Tomb Raider program, we built an entire app with Jeff Keighley. We did videos. I spent probably in the region of about $2.5 million building this Final Hours of Tomb Raider promotion, which was an Amazon promotion. And in one day, $20,000 got me more pre-orders than anything we'd done before it. And then I started looking at that Facebook, and I think in the future, we're going to have an opportunity to be able to use that platform and engage with the people. It's not about how many people there are, but it's about the quality of the people who are on your Facebook page. You're looking at multiplayer now. You go in and play multiplayer, and it says, look, there's a little Facebook icon to say your friends on. But what if when you live during the day on Facebook, you're able to say, let's set up an appointment. Tonight, 4 or 5 of us are going to go and play multiplayer, and then the appointment pops up inside your game, or you're going to be buying DLC. Facebook, in the next year, I look at them and think, we're going to be able to go and buy our digital games directly from Facebook. If there's an offer there, why aren't we able to go and just make the purchase instantly and have it downloaded so you don't have to leave Facebook and go? So I see, Facebook, kind of going off on a tangent slightly, but Facebook to us, I still think is so untapped, and I think there's so much potential with it that for us, gaining likes is a somewhat false metric. If I can have half the amount of likes and have 10 times the quality of people who I've attracted by building good content early in my campaign and bringing those people in and keeping them engaged over and over again, seeing the same people, because I don't mind if we're able to see the same people watch our content over the course of 6 months, at least I know their quality. They're good people, and then we can get those to buy DLC, to play multiplayer, and so on. So it's a slightly different metric.
Well, let me just put some numbers behind that as well. This whole concept of having a few engaged fans on Facebook will get you more than lots. I mean, we have tons of clients who either start a Facebook page from a standing jump, or let's say that, like for instance, MTV is a big client. They run us on about 30 of their shows. Some big ones like Jersey Shore has got 20 million likes, and some that are just starting. One example of one that was just starting was a show called Awkward. Started a couple seasons ago. When they started running us, they had about just under 100,000 likes on the Facebook page. And over a course of about 2 weeks, we were able to attract about 1,000, so 1% of that 100,000 people into a Fanzy application that was running on their timeline. That group of 1,000 people had a social graph of 500,000 people on Facebook. So in 2 weeks, basically, we had given them we had enabled 5x the amount of reach on Facebook than they had through their own timeline. That doesn't mean that, just the same way when they post on their timeline, it doesn't mean they're going to reach all 100,000. They're probably going to reach 10,000. Doesn't mean they're going to reach all 500,000 when they try to get that 1,000 fans engaged. But it just means that that group of fans has a lot of friends, and you get those people talking. You're free of some of the algorithmic constraints on pages, and it works great.
Kind of on that note, and your question of paid advertising, and another piece that's super important to us is all about amplification and making sure all of our internal and kind of own channels are always, helping to spread that noise and then looking for consumers to add to that. So whether, it's Facebook or it's our newsletter or our Xbox Live service or the community, within every kind of game site, it's all about making sure all of those are helping to really spread that noise, and whether it be our partners or retailers, but really getting the noise out and collectively that making a big difference, as well as where we spend the money and investment.
So as you guys talked about Facebook and all the different powers that are untapped or to be tapped, have there been any of the metrics that we may be hearing about coming out now that you guys have found particularly interesting, such as the PTAT score, the virality score, that you guys have found to be as indicative or more indicative than, say, just getting a like?
Going back to my previous example of, how our Facebook numbers don't seem that high, but then we look at our YouTube numbers, that's a direct result of looking at our PTAT, and I think we're averaging around a 40-45% PTAT with our content, and that's, it's that small hardcore community that you guys are talking about that's pushing it out, sharing it with all of their friends who are then engaging in our content. So you can't look at one metric alone and say this is what I'm going to judge on a success or failure. And that's what I did when I first started. The almighty like was what I was after, and I quickly learned that's so much more to it.
Any of the social channels that you guys have found success or you are particularly optimistic about outside of Facebook? The Twitters or the Pinterests or YouTubes?
Tumblr has been very successful for us. We found that in looking at the way in which people digest content nowadays, you have to build your presence in each of these different silos depending on what that consumer wants. So for instance, on Twitter, it's simple to just go 144 characters, I'm telling you about something, but am I directing you to the Facebook page? The day we launched, we had this multi-tier facet where I said, right, well, let's buy reborn as a trending tweet, right, trending hashtag. And then we'll direct everybody to one of 9 different tweets. And inside that tweet is a Facebook link, and it will take you to our Facebook page. And then we had them sort of changing every half an hour and every hour. And I was able to, in real time, look at the metrics. I think at one stage we broke a record of 12.3% engagement across Twitter, which was absolutely huge, and they made a big deal of. But then when I looked at when people got to Facebook, there was certain programs that we had there was too much information. When you looked at what works on Facebook, the 90 plus characters, and then when you open it, maybe there's a couple of gallery pictures, but there's still so much more you want to tell people about. We then started to direct people to Tumblr. And when I started tracking how many and how people were moving around, people were going from Twitter to Facebook, Facebook to Tumblr, and then going from Tumblr to our forums, because then they wanted to talk with hardcore fans. So we could see a direct correlation between building presence on each of these platforms, depending on the amount of content or the types of fans. And I think again, with Tumblr, we went from 0 to 100, I think it's like 140,000 people, which was the single biggest video game on Tumblr, because we literally used Tumblr for what we felt it was right for. It was for giving people the depth of information in our content, and it wasn't like Facebook where you want to keep it snappy and short and to the point. So for us, we've had successes across the board in many different places, but Tumblr is the one, again, that I feel like is untapped again. It's one where we all sort of say, hey, we do a blog, but think of the amount of space and the types of people who go on Tumblr. They're sitting there and they're willing to spend an hour or two traipsing through and reading content about your game, and they don't like to go into your forums and your community because, you know, that's a little bit of a connection too close to the fans. You know, you got to be in the know when you're in the forums. But with Tumblr, you can still take a step back, get more information than you get with Facebook.
Well, I mean, obviously it's completely client and campaign specific, but I mean, we just see YouTube being super successful, you know, very frequently, and I also think, you know, again, as these rule changes happen in social networks, there's an ebb and flow, kind of like in the communal consciousness about where to direct attention. So right now I see, you know, and obviously there's a lot that Facebook does that can be very successful, but we see, you know, more and more people trying to get fans, you know, out of Facebook and into YouTube. I mean, if there was one migration that I see a lot, that's it.
I'd say one last piece that we still look at, and it's been around forever, but is, you know, the official website, which, you know, more and more we're moving away from the big engagements on the official websites. I mean, even 3 years ago, we were putting, you know, $500,000 investments into this massive website where you could look at every potential stat you could ever dream of and all these things. And, you know, we looked at our traffic and we're like, all right, we've got the hardcore of the hardcore care about this, but we weren't seeing that making it worth the investment. So we have been moving away from that, but I'm not completely sold on the fact that the traditional website is dead. I think it's coming up with an engaging idea that's going to keep people going to that. You know, like for us, we built our battle arena on the This Moment platform, which I think was mentioned earlier, which is a great platform. You know, you can localize it, you can share it with the different territories, you can have it hosted through you know, different platforms. So, you know, I think that could be a new advancement in where these more traditional websites go.
Let's talk about, let's shift gears a little bit to access points. As you guys talk about creating games and content and then using different social channels to promote your titles. When you think about traditional desktop, tablets, and smartphones, is there a difference in the way you approach marketing and content for each of those?
Yeah, and it gets back to understanding your audience. We brought in a specialist, a guy called Martin Lindstrom, about 3 years ago. I don't know if anybody knows Martin Lindstrom, read any of his books. It was a day session I spent with Martin, literally pulling apart our brand and building those 10 religious rules and understanding sort of when the semantic markers are, how we engage with people on different levels. And we did an entire study where actually I went and lived with a fan for, I think it was about 2 weeks, just to try and understand what a fan does on a daily basis, how they sort of engage with your brand. And it was amazing that, you know, we get into that sort of the toothpaste and coffee mantra. You know, it was like, not everybody gets to their desktop, not everybody has their iPad with them, but when they have their phone, they're able to pick up a coffee, and on the side of a coffee cup is your hashtag or your promotion, or, you know, to us it was about trying to find unique ways to bring cool content, but then deliver it to them in the way in which they want it. You know, we go out and build trailers and we think, oh, it's great, let's do a huge trailer, put it on GDTV, and then for E3, that's huge. You know, it's a great opportunity to be able to get out, mass the world, go on the VJs, but then there's opportunities to say, right, we want to hit the masses. So for us, when we built our site with This Moment, one of the key things I said is, it's got to be mobile, right? It's got to be where I can literally have my fan pick up a hashtag on the side of a coffee cup or whatever they do first thing in the morning where they check their emails, and literally they're able to get my content instantly. And then there's, when they have it instantly, they're not going to have their laptop or their iPad, well, they may with their iPad, but their desktop in the bar that night showing their friends. But we want to be able to build content that's so viral and so cool that you literally can go quick on your desktop or your iPad or your Android device, you know, hit a button and it takes you straight through to showing a trailer. Whereas 5 years ago, that wasn't the case. 5 years ago, we were building websites and you go to YouTube and it was the way in which we got content. Nowadays, we build our promotions and we build the assets we're creating around the accessibility. Like, who do we want to see it? When do we want them to see it? How easy should it be? I think that's hugely important for us now as we move forward because, you know, as we know, print is on the way down and TV's getting more and more expensive. We've got to find new ways to be able to engage. And I think with TOR over the last 6 months, we've seen some huge metrics with the way in which people are engaging with our content that we'll take into the future of our games in a way in which we would never have seen 5 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, I was going to say, going back to the previous point of just having that rabbit hole effect and being able to create different content, that also applies to different devices. You know, we look at our Facebook engagement and we get a ton more shares and likes and comments on an image versus a video. You know, yeah, but it makes sense if you think about it. It's so much easier to engage with an image. You see it on your Facebook page, you're on your phone, looks cool, you like it, you share it. Where a video is much more of an investment of time. You know, yes, you can watch it on your phone, but there's still, you know, broadband issues that a lot of people have. And so it's really creating that broad spectrum of content that you can engage with on all the different devices.